melodic heavy metal. Playing it heavier, louder, raunchier, faster. 99.1 CJAM. This is the Signals of Intuition.
99.1 CJAM-FM. There's brand new Queensryche right there with Where Dreams Go to Die from their brand new self-titled record. You were listening to the Signals of Intuition, 2 hours of melodic hard rock and heavy metal coming your way. Tonight on the show, we've got a very special guest. We've got the producer and engineer of that record, Mr. Jimbo Barton, as well as Queensryche. He's also been involved in a number of other projects, including mixing for Kiss, Metallica, Rush, Eric Clapton, Stone Sour, and so many other bands. So let's get him on the line right now.
Hello.
Hey, Jimbo.
Hey, Brendan. How are you, man?
Good. How you doing?
Good. Welcome to our little humble abode.
Are you in your studio right now?
Yeah, we are.
So would you mind if we sort of start this by talking about your early career and sort of how you got in the industry and that kind of thing? And then we'll work into what you've got going on now?
Yeah. I initially, I played in a band years ago. I was a teenager, one the usual thing that guys go through, the battle of the bands and all of that. And I guess just from making our demos and things back then, I got studio fever pretty badly. And I ended up moving into this whole studio situation. Had a guy, Roger Savage, took me under his wing and trained me, and I went through the mill and did the Midnight to Dawn sessions, and eventually I did an album for some friends that really blew up globally for us, and I left. I was living in Australia at the time, and I went back to the UK after that.
Oh, so you're from the UK initially?
Initially, yeah. And
then so growing up, like were you big into like the Beatles and Stones and all those bands, or what?
Yeah. I mean, I had my fair share of that. I had older brothers, so yeah, that was very much a part of my life. And then I did miss the whole rock thing, ironically. Back when the hairband rock was on, I was into British alternative, sort of Haircut 100s and Blancmange and that sort of stuff, Tears for Fears.
Oh, I see. So it wasn't until later when you sort of got into the heavier stuff and more of the rock stuff.
No. I was working with a guy called Peter Collins, and he and I had been partners for quite a while, and we did an album for Gary Moore and Phil Lynott from Thin Lizzy.
Oh, cool.
And I guess after we did that, Rush heard that album and liked it, and then we got a call from them.
So how did you meet up with Peter Collins then?
As I said, the thing in Australia blew up for me. It was a band called Men at Work.
Okay, what record did you do with theirs?
Business as Usual.
Oh, okay.
So,
yep.
Yeah, and Peter had heard the drum sound on that and really liked it, and called me and asked me what I could think about coming over to meet with him and see if we could do something together, and we sure did.
So now, when it came to you working with Rush, obviously one of the bands you're most well known for, were you a fan of the band before they came in the studio? Like, were you aware of them at all, or?
No, and I think that's one of the reasons that it kind of worked so well. They found that hilarious that I didn't know who they were. I think it was kind of a bit of an endearing quality.
And what was it like working on Power Windows and Hold Your Fire, especially working with such inventive and virtuoso players like Rush?
They're amazing. I mean, it speaks for itself, and that there's some of my fondest memories of my career was the projects I did with that band. Just great people, phenomenally intelligent, and just smart and great at what they do. And I have to be honest, I was honored years later to be invited back for the Russian Rio thing, so that was a blast going down there with them.
For that DVD, did you actually go fly down with them and sort of set up the mics and everything and run it from that end, or did you just mix it after the fact?
No. We actually went down there. We had to run the cables. We put a studio on wheels together. The truck that we used to record that had been delivering bread the day before. And we now had 2x4s bolted in there as racks. And then we brought in basically a digital, a 100-track digital recorder.
Oh, wow.
And
so you guys really sort of, wasn't, $1 million studio type situation.
Oh, no. It was very bare bones. at the first show we did in Sao Paulo, the actual cables caught fire.
Oh my God.
I think it was Neil that came out of the dressing room, and he's walking down the path and noticed the cables smoldering and mentioned something to me, and by the time I got back to there, they're in flames. So that was fun and games.
So
But we got
I take it you weren't able to keep any of that stuff then, eh?
Of what now?
The first night when it caught flames, were you able to keep any of that recording? Or?
Yeah. We got everything replaced before the show. So we didn't actually use anything though. The whole show came from Rio. Rio was just sort of a magic night, and it just worked. It was great.
Oh yeah, well I mean, to me, like I still hold that as one of the best live DVDs ever. You know, the crowd was just insane. The sound's great. You know, like how
I know. I mean, just the crowd singing along to guitar melodies and things. It just blew my mind. I mean, I had shivers up on the night. It was quite bizarre.
And then, so how do you and Peter Collins get hooked up with Queensryche to do Operation Mindcrime?
Getty's actually very good friends with a couple guys in New York that run a management company, Q Prime. And I guess the guys at Q Prime had heard what we did on their first album. And it was sort of a natural progression. We started working with them. And at the time they had, like Queensryche, Def Leppard, AC/DC, Metallica. And we sort of got into the rock thing through that, and before I knew it, that's all we were doing. British pop was finished.
Yeah, I guess by that time, sort of the hair metal scene had sort of taken over by then.
Well, out here, yeah. I actually ended up moving here just because I couldn't deal with the commute all the time. But ultimately, Peter did too. He's moved to Nashville now.
What's he up to nowadays? Because the last thing I really heard from him that I can think of would be Here in the Now Frontier and Bon Jovi's These Days.
Yeah, no, he still works with Indigo Girls. That's still big on his list. He does Brian Setzer Orchestra.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so he keeps his hand, in the ring. But I don't think Peter's that excited about doing too much, if somehow. But I don't know. I haven't spoke to Pete in quite a while.
Oh, fair enough.
But it's not like there's anything wrong. Our relationship is still very intact.
Yeah. So, getting back to Mindcrime, what can you tell me about the recording of that record? Like, what was it like working on such an ambitious project at that time?
At first, when I first heard the whole idea for it, I laughed my ass off, to be honest with you. I thought, this is ludicrous. And the more it sort of came together with Chris, the more interesting it got. And then when I realized that, we would actually have to create soundscapes and, and go record half the stuff ourselves, it became really, really interesting. And when we started laying it and I started segueing in between the actual titles, it was wonderful.
So did you have to go out and capture a lot of the sound effects, like the limousine driving by and the rain and all that?
Yeah, a lot of that we did actually go and track. Some of it we got from a sound effects library, but not much. We got, like the hospital scene from sound effects libraries, but a lot of it is recorded. Like the police sirens in Sweet Sister Mary that's all New York City at 4 a.m.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What'd you do, walk outside with like an old ADAT machine or something? Or?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay. I've always wondered, Mindcrime and Empire to me are among my favorite drum sounds, so I'll just tell you right up front. I'm a big fan of the mix on those records. Do you remember which snare drum you used on Operation Mindcrime, or sort of how you got that big shotgun sort of effect?
It's pretty much, Scott Rockenfield supplies everything you need. He's one of the finest drummers I've ever worked with. He's great. He's phenomenal. And it's really not that hard. It's just room sounds. How can I do? I have a stereo. I have the close mics on the drums, obviously. And then I have a stereo pair of room mics that I face away from the drum kit into the big room. And then I usually put a mono mic in the middle, and I will gate that mono mic off the snare drum. So every time the snare drum goes off, that room goes off.
Oh, that's a very interesting approach.
Yeah, but I gate it after the fact, because, as you know, inconsistencies can get you in trouble. So,
oh, yeah.
So, yeah.
In the remaster booklet of Mindcrime, it says that you undertook one of the first digital mixes at the time. What do they mean by that? Like, obviously, digital tape had been used as a storage medium, but what do they mean by one of the first digital mixes?
We were one of the first to use, there was a format called a Mitsubishi 2-track digital machine. And it was a 96K machine. And I think we were one of the first to use that. I had actually a major problem on the Power Windows album for Rush. We'd tracked the thing in England, out in the country in Oxford, and on 2-inch tape, and by the time we had the tapes shipped out to Montserrat in the West Indies, they'd been banged around so much that all the high end was completely gone off them. So we had the white coats come out from our studios in London to show me, what happens to 2-inch tape. And at that point I said to the guy, so what am I meant to do? We've just spent $50,000 tracking drums and none of it's any good. And he said, well, do you have the safety copies? And I said, yeah, I have. And he goes, well, I can make a suggestion. There's a new digital 32-track machine out called the Mitsubishi. And of course my eyes lit up and we immediately flew back to London and grabbed the safety copies and bounced that to Mitsubishi. And we finished the rest of the album on those machines. At that point, I never went back. I didn't make another analog album after that. Not recording and not mixing.
Oh, so you're very much like Michael Wagner then, because I interviewed him a couple weeks ago, and he was the same way. He was like, as soon as I discovered digital existed, that was it for me with analog.
Yeah, same for me. Same for me. I mean, digital, you put what you want to hear, get the sound you want to hear, and record it, and it just plays back.
Yeah.
As opposed to 2-inch tape, where you've got to overly brighten the drums on the input to have it play back normally, or else hot rod the record side of the input, which techs always hate before. They're constantly cursing you for doing it. So yeah, I would never go back. I'm digital all the way.
Yeah. Oh, I can't blame you. I've worked with 2-inch tape, with a razor blade in a film course I took in university, and I did it once and said, screw this, never again. There's a reason to use digital. So if I have this right, when the label heard the original mixes of Mindcrime, they wanted you to remix it?
They wanted me to. Is
that true?
It?
That's what the booklet says.
No.
Mindcrime.
No, I was never asked to remix it. What happened was that the label guy, because at the time we were on Manhattan Records, and which was a division of EMI, and the A&R guy took it upon himself to master the album himself. And they took out all the bottom end and made it shrill and bright. It sounded nothing like the original mixes that we had done. So, if I'm not mistaken, it was remastered again at some point.
Oh, so it came down to the mastering, not the actual mixing, where they said, hey, we're not happy with this.
No, we only mixed it once. That was it.
Oh, okay. And then, so, as far as Empire, the next album goes, was that recorded mostly in Seattle?
No. Empire... We did the tracking for Empire in Vancouver, at Vancouver Studios. And then we went to Seattle for some overdubs, and then we mixed it in Holland, I believe.
Oh, okay. Was there any reason you went to Holland to mix it, or?
Q Prime had Def Leppard in a studio over there, an amazing studio, actually, Hilversum Studios, and I guess Q Prime had a great deal on the place, and the band were going to be touring through Europe at the time. So that was it, and we were living in London, so off we went.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have any memories about the gear, sort of miking techniques or anything like that on Empire?
Yeah, I pretty much. It's the same thing I've ever done on Scott. I'm a big thing on close miking. Like if he's going to play something in the kit, I want to be able to hear it. I want to be able to have control over it, turn it up, because sometimes it might be just a little 16th note or something.
Mm-hmm.
But in the rhythm, it's an integral part of the rhythm. So when I'm actually miking it, I'm very anal to make sure that I can hear every little thing in the kit. If it's a finger cymbal, if it's a bell, it's got a mic on.
Oh, so you actually mic every single cymbal and hat and all that, or?
I mic the hats. The overheads I put on that old original kit because it was so much bigger than what he's using now. I used 3 overheads, a left, a center, and a right, and then I would close mic the bell of his right cymbal. It would all end up on one stereo track.
When you're miking a bell, do you put it like on top of it, or do you put it underneath? I would assume on top, right?
Wherever I can stick the mic, and it's not going to be in his way.
Oh, yeah, fair enough. That's true.
And the only thing that I do always try and maintain is that every mic on the kit is facing the same direction. You know, all the tom mics and all of that sort of stuff. So we don't ever have phase issues.
Yeah. From what I understand, you weren't involved in a lot of the engineering or mixing of Empire, especially the title track and some of the bonus tracks. That to me sort of blows me away because the mix on, say, Empire is sounds exactly the same as Hand on Heart.
No, that's not accurate. Paul Northfield, I was in England finishing a project, and I was still mixing. I had like 4 or 5 days to go on it, and Peter couldn't wait. He needed to get going on that, so they tracked the drums for Empire, and I think some guitars, and then I met up with them in Vancouver, and we ended up, once we'd tracked some drums and we went back to work on Empire, it wasn't really working out so well.
Oh, I see.
So we ended up using Scott's samples rather than recutting the track because the performance was good. So I just, took the sounds off another sample thing that we did from Scott, and we used those. But I did actually finish that entire track, did the vocals, did the whole thing on it, and mixed it.
Yeah, because that to me blows me away. I go, how the hell can Paul Northfield replicate one of your mixes? That to me just didn't make sense.
He didn't. He had nothing to do with the mixing at all.
Okay.
Not at all. And it was only that one track that I was missing for like 5 days. I think I was late, so it wasn't really much. No.
And then it says you were also involved in the mixing and engineering of the MTV Unplugged sessions that Queensryche did.
Yes.
Were you there again, running the board, miking everything, or?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, okay.
Tracked and mixed.
Oh, very cool. And then, so we'll talk a little bit more Queensryche, and then I've got a bunch of stuff talking about, a bunch of the other bands you've done. Just to let you know, we're not solely focusing on Queensryche here.
No, that's okay. Actually, after Empire, we did a live thing called Operation Live Crime.
Yeah, that's right. Again, were you fully involved in producing that whole live project?
Post-production and mix.
Oh, okay.
So they tracked it somewhere when they were on tour and just sent me tapes, and I did the rest.
Yeah, because that was a fantastic live album. I got to say, I really love that one.
They were so good. I went to see those guys when we were actually mixing Empire, I think it was. We went out one night. They were playing in Rotterdam. Anyways, we turned up, and we'd been late leaving, and the studio manageress had driven us down there. I was all upset that we were late because I really wanted to see the show. But anyways, we're trying to find the backstage entrance to get our passes and stuff to get in. And I could hear the band playing, and Peter's like, "Jimbo, relax. They're playing the CD. The band aren't even on yet." I said, "No, that sounds like it's live, Peter." And he goes, "Really?" I said, "Well, maybe it could be the CD, but I don't think so. It's pretty loud." We get inside, and of course they're playing. They're live on stage, and Peter just looked at me and said, "Oh my God, Jimbo." We were dumbfounded that they were playing that live and doing it so well. So tightly.
At that time, were they still working to click tracks and backing tracks and all that kind of stuff?
Oh yeah, but Scott gets pretty crazy with it. He'll do tempo changes and all kinds of stuff. Very, very creative.
So
guy.
even back then, he was already doing all that stuff, eh?
Oh yeah, he was all over it. Delays for the drums, effects or something. If he heard it in his head, he'd say, "Hey, James, let's try this." So yeah, he was always a very creative guy.
Right, Jimbo, right now we've got to go to a break, but what do you say we play a couple tracks off of Power Windows and Hold Your Fire from Rush?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
All right, so let's kick everything off right here off of Rush's Power Windows. This is Territories, and we'll be back with more from Jimbo Barton. 99.1 CJAM-FM. There's some live Queensryche right there off of Operation Live Crime. We had The Needle Lies. Before that, we had Hand on Heart off of Empire, and 2 tracks from Rush. Before that, we had Prime Mover from Hold Your Fire and Territories from Power Windows. And tonight on the show, we've got the engineer of all those records, Mr. Jimbo Barton, on the line right now. In addition to Rush and Queensryche, he's also done some stuff with Metallica, Kiss, and even American Idol. And we're going to talk about a lot of that stuff right now. So we spent the first part of the show talking a lot about Queensryche and Rush, and I'd like to continue with Queensryche before we move on to other things and talk about the Promised Land album. So Jimbo, in terms of Promised Land, was such a different record, not only from the musical direction, but also from the production standpoint as well. What was it like going from the engineer's chair to the producer's chair on that album?
It wasn't a very big change, to be perfectly honest, because the one great thing about Peter, the way Peter would work is he'd do pre-production, arrange the material, obviously, get the arrangements done, cut them up, add things, and basically work out, what the arrangement of the album was going to be. And I would maybe go to the last 3 or 4 days of pre-production just to listen, see if there was anything he thought that he may have missed, blah, blah, blah. But once we got into the studio, he basically would let us have at it. You know, he obviously kept us on a timetable, you know, downbeats 10 o'clock, 8 o'clock we eat dinner, you know, 9 o'clock we whatever.
Mm-hmm.
He was great at all that stuff, but he was also wonderful in that he would just kind of let the creative thing go. He would just let us do our thing. So it was always great. I mean, obviously Peter had ideas. I don't mean to, you know, he was really cool with us, you know. He just let it happen. He gave the right amount of freedom. Great producer. He knows when to reel it in, and he knows when to let it kind of run its course.
Mm-hmm. So you guys recorded at Big Log Studios, which, as far as I can tell, seems fairly remote in the wilderness. Is it an actual recording studio, or did you just bring in all of your gear into like some sort of house or whatever to do this?
Yeah, it was a huge, it was a log palace, I call it. You know, I mean, the logs were big, like 2-arm logs, and through a friend of Chris's, I believe it was, he found this place on a 20-acre property on San Juan Island, just south of Canada, and sent me photos and a video and said, you know, what do you think? And we put together a list of equipment we would need and, you know, cost of renting the stuff for an extended period. And it still came in cheaper than a studio, so we went for it.
Oh, wow.
And we had everything shipped up to Seattle, and Chris DeGama was already flying at that point. So he flew most of the gear from Seattle up to the island. And we just, you know, we'd do it all day long. It took us like 3 days to get all the gear up there.
Oh, I bet.
But, you know, it was a wild situation. You know, by that time, the guys in the band were, of course, incredibly technically savvy. They all had ADATs and little mixing consoles, 8-channel or 16-channel Mackie mixing consoles. And, in fact, we counted it up one day. I think we had something like, I want to say 500 channels of Mackie in the entire house. We had we brought in a Sony 48-track tape machine, set the drums up in a big room, and it was basically the same thing but in a big house. And that was it. Off we went. But the great thing about that process was that the guys could actually track stuff in their own environments and just bring it down to me. I could drop it into the track. Was that really
different? Was that really difficult trying to piece together a bunch of different recordings, and obviously the quality is going to be different and all that sort of thing? Or
no, not really, because like on the way into Pro Tools or the tape machine, I would always EQ it, so you know, and get the sound that we needed to hear. Mm-hmm. But they recorded a lot of the guitars themselves, Michael and Chris. You know, so obviously I would set them up with their sound upstairs, but then they could have at it. You know, they'd worked out their parts, because a lot of that was just sort of written on the go. It wasn't as structured. It was a bit of, it was a more self-indulgent record, you know, that I think most bands have to make at some point.
Okay, so that record really, you know, you didn't go in with any sort of major plan or a lot of pre-production or any of that kind of thing. You sort of did it all in the studio.
No, very little. It was all on the fly.
Oh, okay. One track I've always loved from that record, but today is an extremely rare bootleg, is the song called 2 Mile High. Did you guys actually record that song, or was that sort of done as an afterthought after the fact?
You know, I can't even remember, to be honest.
Yeah, that was a bootleg on the Promised Land CD-ROM. So I don't know if, you know, that might have been done in another studio with someone else somewhere. I'm not sure.
I can't remember, to be perfectly honest with you. It may have been in the same session. I can't remember. I mean, I remember that we did do soundtrack stuff for they had a CD-ROM that came out that was a game or something, so it may have been for that. I just can't remember.
Yeah, fair enough. So around the time you did Empire, you also worked on Fate's Warning's Parallels, which, if I understand right, was done at Metalworks Studios in Toronto. Is that true?
I think they may have tracked it up there. But I mixed it down here at a studio called Enterprise.
Okay, so were you involved in actually engineering those sessions, or did you just mix it after the fact?
No, I just did some mixes.
Oh, okay, I see.
Yeah, that was my only involvement. I mixed 2 or 3 tracks, I think.
Okay, oh, so you didn't even do the whole record?
No.
Oh, okay. And then getting back to sort of a lot of the unplugged sessions that you've been involved with, one of the best-selling and one of the best you're probably well known for is Eric Clapton. What was your role in that project? Were you full producer or mixing engineer?
It was producer engineer, and it was obviously executive produced by Russ Titleman. But we did it over in the UK, and we basically had a week to set up and, for Eric to work out a set and how it was going to be done, and, camera practice and all that sort of stuff. But, yeah, so we had a week's pre-production, and on the night, he just went for it. A phenomenally talented band, that he had with him. Phenomenally talented.
Oh, how was it working with Eric Clapton? Any good stories?
Yeah, he's Eric Clapton. He's awesome. He's awesome. But there was one good story in that. Well, I probably shouldn't get into that one because that's a bit. But it was the way that the new version of Layla came around, and when he walked in with that, no one had any idea what he was doing. He was just sitting there playing the intro over and over and over, and then he played the melody bit, and then of course everyone just broke into a big cheer. He was asked if he could rework something from yesteryear, and so that's what he did.
Oh, okay. So another band you were obviously involved with quite a bit in terms of live stuff was Metallica. Did you just do like live mixing and engineering and that sort of thing, or were you actually involved in any of the studio records that they did?
I did some of Whiskey in a Jar, and I did a couple of single remixes over the years, but most of the stuff I did with Metallica was live stuff, and we did tons and tons of it too.
How involved were you with the live Binge and Purge album that Metallica did?
I was pretty involved in that. There were 3 shows on that, and there was Randy Staub, Mike Fraser, and myself.
Oh wow, that's a pretty crazy lineup of engineers right there.
Right? Yeah. Well, and all great guys. And guess what? Canadians.
Oh, that's right. Fraser is Canadian. I forgot about that.
What can I tell you? So Staub. I think Randy is too, right?
I think so. Well, I mean, he's worked with Bob Rock in Vancouver forever, so I would assume so.
Yeah. It was all out of Little Mountain. Where were we? Yeah. So live shit, Binge and Purge. All the post-production and mixing on that was done at a place called The Plant in just out of San Francisco in Sausalito. And I got stuck in a brand new houseboat for a couple of months, and that's how that went down.
Oh, okay. Now you've obviously done a lot of stuff with Mike Fraser over the years.
Mike and I have run into each other a hell of a lot. We've co-mixed some things together. He's maybe done a track on an album I've done, or vice versa. But we know each other pretty well, yeah.
How does that work when 2 people co-mix something together? Like, does one guy get the drum sound, the other guy do the guitars, or one guy just...
Oh, no. So what we did was they had 3 studios there, and Randy did the first couple of days, and then he had to go do a project up in Vancouver. And then I came into his room. But he finished his show, I forget I think his show was Seattle or something, and mine was San Diego, and Mike Fraser was somewhere else. It was basically 3 different shows in the Roadcase box set.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, you don't, outside of wandering out for a smoke and sharing something together, but it's the only time we'd see each other is if he'll wander into my room or I'll wander into his room. We did try and keep some kind of, we wanted the thing to have some sort of continuity, so we used the same effects, we kind of sound a bit similar anyway, I think. So it wasn't, Mike's a really easygoing guy. It wasn't hard for us at all. It was great, in fact.
Oh, okay. Now another band you worked with, and I only found this out yesterday, was Circle of Silence.
Oh yeah, David, forget David's surname.
Ricci, yeah, from Accept.
Yeah.
It's so funny because I didn't even know that about them. I maybe 15 years ago downloaded like a track of theirs,
right,
and I liked it, but I couldn't find out anything more about them and just forgot about them. And all of a sudden yesterday I was like, Circle of Silence. Oh yeah, I remember that. So, what can you sort of tell me about working with those guys? Because you did a couple records with them, right?
Both those albums were done in a weekend. We went in on a Friday night and we walked out of there mixed on Monday morning. We did at Village Studios, in Santa Monica.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a pretty well-known studio.
Yeah. So, and that was it. We did pre-production, obviously, a heavy pre-production on that, so that everybody knew their part. And, you know, we had a great drummer, so he always played the exact same thing that we'd worked out, which was awesome. So we just went in and were Mad Dogs. Both albums done in a week.
Oh, wow. I mean, I've taken more than a weekend just to do a song, so that completely blows my mind.
That's so fun.
Jimbo, right now we've got to go to another break, and I'd like to kick everything off with Queensryche from Promised Land. We'll do a song, and then we'll play a couple tracks from some of the other records we've just mentioned, and then we'll come back and talk about sort of what you've been up to in the last decade or so.
All right. Okay, great.
Okay. All right, so let's do Lady Jane off of Promised Land. And then we'll be back with more with Jimbo Barton. 99.1 CJAM-FM. There's Circle of Silence right there with Dancing on the Sun. Before that, we have Metallica live with the Four Horsemen from Live Shit, Binge and Purge. Fate's Warning before that with Point of View off of Parallels. And Queensryche kicking everything off with Lady Jane from Promised Land. All four of those tracks mixed and or produced by Mr. Jimbo Barton, who we've had on the show for the last hour or so, and he's going to stick around for the rest of the show. We've been talking about those bands we just played, as well as Rush and Queensryche and several others. So, Jimbo, another band that you worked with was Stone Sour doing their hit Bother.
Yeah.
And certainly, I mean, I remember that song in about 2002 or so on the Spider-Man soundtrack. That was a huge hit at the time. How did you come to land the gig mixing that track?
I was working at the time with a guy called Steve Richards. He was a Sony A&R guy, and he started a label called No Name. And I'd done a band on his new label, and I guess Corey had heard that track that I did with that band, and you know, Steve was trying to get him to get a single on the soundtrack, and Corey said, "Man, let's go for it." And unfortunately, the guy only had, I think we had 3 hours together, so we just. I already knew this. I had received the song, obviously, so I knew the song, and I edited the song into a slightly different arrangement, sent it back to him, got the thumbs up. He said, "Great, I'll be in town Friday." He turned up about 4 or 5 in the afternoon. We tracked for 3 hours, and I just basically tracked more than I needed, and then went through and sorted it all out. And then once the track was in place, I came back to my studio, which is where I am now. I don't know if you can see me.
Yep, I can see the video. Okay. What are you on? Are you on a laptop?
Yeah, I'm on a laptop, just sitting outside. That's our view from our studio.
Oh, wow, what a view. For everyone listening, he's in his backyard, and there's a pool overlooking a mountain range in the background. It just looks absolutely incredible.
Pretty nice view. So, then we brought the track.
Jimbo, what's the name of your studio, by the way?
Mixing room.
Oh, okay.
It's in a private house. It's my partner's house.
Wow. Yeah, I've been sort of watching you walk around and move around and stuff, and getting a glimpse of the house. And I'm just thinking, you know, what an incredible house this is.
This is my partner, JJ, by the way. JJ Farris.
Hey, JJ.
Brandon.
Oh, I know you can't see me right now, but I guess you can hear me. I hope.
Oh, there you go. Hey, cool, man. Nice to meet you.
Oh, yeah, nice to meet you too, JJ.
Yeah, so then we brought it back here and wrote a string arrangement for it, and took it off and tracked some strings and mixed it, and that was pretty much it. Sent the mix out to Corey and got the thumbs up on it, and that was it. It went out, and it did what it did, which was really, really nice, because I didn't expect it.
Did you also work with Slipknot at all?
Yeah, I did actually. I did a few things for Slipknot. But, you know, at the time they were having problems, internal problems, and, you know, it was what it was. Mm-hmm. We did a couple of tracks in the studio, and then I think I did, there was an album that we worked on called Tattoo the Earth, and it was 10 bands or something on a tour.
Oh,
so we did that together, and a couple of other bits and pieces, but, yeah.
Oh, okay. You also did quite a few things with Kiss. Was that all live stuff, or did you ever get in the studio with those guys?
I did some remixes of some older stuff, but no. We did the MTV Unplugged, and then I did, I think it was Psycho Circus.
Oh, yeah, it was the live disc.
Yeah, and then they got me back for the Super Bowl performance thing they did, which was totally off the record, was mine.
Oh, so you actually mixed the sound that went out live during the Super Bowl for that?
Oh yeah, it was already done. The whole thing was put together. And then in their headphones, I shouldn't tell you that, but we actually had to put click tracks into all of the downbeat things on the outro where they were about to finish.
Oh, yeah.
It's funny.
Well, it's 15 years later right now, so it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, it's over now.
Did you work on a Live 3, or is that another all-music screw-up again?
For Kiss?
Yeah.
I think I did, actually. Yeah, I did, because I met their manager, Doc, on the 710 freeway to unload tapes out of his trunk into mine. Yeah, I think that's what that was. And then I did another thing with them for the military, a DVD. They were on with, God, who else was on that? Guitar player from Bon Jovi.
Richie Sambora?
Richie Zambora's band was on it. Beyonce was on it, and a bunch of other people. But yeah, that did pretty well too.
Oh, cool. So as far as live recording, are you sort of becoming like a go-to guy for television broadcasts, or is it mostly just album and post-production stuff that you deal with?
No, it's I was really lucky, I got a really thorough training and background, so I can kind of do all sorts of things. I mean, with my partner here, JJ, and I, we do film trailers and sound design for those film trailers. So that includes, the whooshes, the bangs, the machine guns, the electricity noises, all of that sort of stuff. So we've been doing a ton of that for Sony, and they've been really liking it. So I must be honest, I kind of get around quite a bit. I'll go and just finish the Queensryche album, which was just awesome to be back with those guys again. Yeah, and I sort of go around all over the place. JJ and I still produce artists out of our place here as well.
Oh, okay. It says you're also involved with American Idol as well, doing mixing for that. Do you do the live broadcast stuff, or is that after the fact?
No. I never did the live broadcast. I did 8 seasons for them, and then when Jimmy Iovine took it over, I was out. I couldn't. He was going to take it and do it some other way. He had his way to do it, so no, I bailed at that point. But yes, I did 8 seasons with another guy called Ethan Mates. Another good friend, and we'd worked together for years. And we were in 2 control rooms, and we'd basically mix an album every week between us.
Mix an album? Oh, wait, so did you...
Because it was all the downloads. At the beginning of the season, we have 14 mixes to do overnight, or 2 days.
Oh, so like it would go out live over the show, and then you'd remix it for iTunes or whatever?
Yeah,
okay. I got you.
All the iTunes downloads had to be ready for purchase before the show hit the air. So it was super high pressure turnaround. But obviously they wanted their downloads to sound like albums and singles, and so... Did
you keep all of the crowd and all that in those downloads, or did you try to keep it live, just better sounding, or?
Oh, no. They were actually studio recordings. We didn't mix the live stuff. The contestants would pick their song Wednesday. They had Thursday to rehearse it. We'd go into Capitol Records on Friday night and start tracking, and the tracking would be done that night, and then the next day the contestants would start overdubbing on the tracks, and then Ethan and I would start getting material Sunday night, Monday morning, and we'd start mixing.
So American Idol was Tuesday, I presume?
And then the show would go on, I think the show went on Tuesday. But we also had to leave time because, iTunes have to master it and do their whole thing they do to it. So, yeah, it was a pretty high-pressure gig, I must say. But fun, a lot of fun. And, when you would get the good ones, the really good ones through, it was great.
And then, so now I'd like to take a bit of time and talk about your approach to mixing and the sort of gear you use and that kind of thing. So today, do you work off a Pro Tools system, or?
Yes, I do.
Pro Tools, yeah?
Yeah, I've got a Pro Tools HD thing.
Oh, okay. And which console do you prefer, Neve or SSL?
Both. I usually track on a Neve. I'll record everything on a Neve, and for mixing, I come back to an SSL.
Oh, okay. What are your thoughts on common industry practices today, like the use of a lot of auto-tune and the loudness wars?
That really kind of bums me out, to be honest with you, because it's taken some of the dynamic out of music, I think, a little bit. But, having said that, record companies want to be competitive, so you've got to kind of, I don't know, it's just the way people are doing it now bothers me more than anything. I mean, we've always strived to get our records as loud as we could. The mixes are always as heavy as you can get them, and as loud as you can get them to tape. But it's these days it's just material's being crushed to the point that it's almost unrecognizable, which is kind of depressing. But there's not much you can do about it.
And then what about auto-tune? Are you a fan of it, or?
I'm not a fan of it, but sometimes I have to use it. Yeah, not a big fan of it. I'd rather do the work and have the guy get it right.
Yeah, my feeling on it's always been it's a useful tool if you're touching up a note. You know, the performance on it was great, and it just was a little bit off, kind of thing, right?
Exactly where I'm at with it. Same sort of thing for me. I hate that share kind of R&B hip hop thing everyone's doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
And it's crazy, you know, because you look at some of those guys and they're great singers, and they choose to put that crap on there. Bizarre.
So I've always wondered how much influence did A&R people and label reps have over your mixes?
Not really anything.
You've never had like an angry rep come back in and say, "I want this totally different," or
no, never had that happen. Fortunately, touch wood. Never happened to me.
Now I'm curious, have you ever done sort of any consultation work? Like you go out and you help them get the guitar sound or drum sound or whatever?
I actually did that for a few years in England. I would get hired for day one, go get the drum sound and then leave.
Any bands or albums you can think of?
I did a Phil Collins thing. I think it was that he did a movie soundtrack, and Hugh Padgham wasn't available because Hugh Padgham got that drum sound on In the Air Tonight.
Mm.
And he needed that, and he was back in the same studio. So I went in and pulled that off for him, and then I was there for probably 3 hours and left.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. But I used to do it a lot, and when you're doing it, I kind of did it non-stop for about 6 months, just because I was home for dinner every night.
Mm-hmm.
It was one, but I got sick of it, and you never know where the things end up or what happens to them.
Yeah. And of course, when you do it one after another, day after day, you just kind of forget the artists you worked with anyways, eh?
Yeah, exactly. It's not good. It's being a whore. So I stopped.
Outside of music and engineering, what are some of your hobbies?
What are some of my hobbies? Boy, drinking. No, I run. I live in a town called Silver Lake down here, and we've got a beautiful reservoir, which I like to run around. I've been known to pull the tennis racket off cobwebs every now and then. And outside of that, I mean, normal stuff, movies, hanging out. I live a very low-key, pretty humble life.
Mm-hmm.
And it suits me perfectly. I try and keep it like that.
So likewise, who are some of your favorite bands? Or do you even really find yourself listening to music anymore with all the mixing and stuff that you do?
No, I do. I have favorites. Probably Radiohead, U2. It's a tough one because thousands of bands for different reasons. I've never been one that hangs on and listens to an album forever.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy it for 2-3 months and move on.
Yeah.
And then I don't go back to it again. But, artists that I might go back and, like I would still go back and listen to the bands, or OK Computer, or Achtung Baby, or something like that. And if I say them because if, I don't know, I might be with my girlfriend, go for a drive up the highway for, a couple of days, and that would be the stuff that I would probably put on.
Mm-hmm. Who are some engineers and producers that you really admire? Like, are there any that you put on and go, I want to try to get a sound like that, or people whose mixes consistently impress you, or?
Yeah, Andy Wallace.
Oh, yep.
I think Andy Wallace is a genius. I love his mixes. Loved his mixes. Very, very talented man. I think Bob Clearmountain always has historically done great mixes. Manny Marroquin, who's actually an R&B guy, I love his mixes too. A lot of 3D depth, width. Completely not what I do, but I can still listen to his stuff and really appreciate it. Same thing with Dave Pensato. Obviously, Mike Fraser is amazing. Tom Lord Alge, I really like. So they would be the guys I would say that, to me, consistently make really good records.
So before we dive into this new Queensryche album, and I've got to warn you, I've got a lot of questions about that coming up.
Right.
Are there any other projects you've been involved in that you wish would get more attention, or you thought would have been a bigger record than it turned out to be, or something along those lines?
Yeah, there was one band called Motograder, and I really thought that would get a real cult following going. about it, and it just never happened, which really disappointed me because, we worked really hard on the project. And I always wished it had done better than it did.
Mm-hmm.
And ironically, I'm still in touch with all of the guys to this day. So it was,
That's cool. Have they gone on to do anything else?
In other bands, some of them have, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Matt, the guitar player, he's still playing in bands and stuff like that. Actually, Ivan, the singer, went on to Five Finger Death Punch.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Are there any artists that we haven't talked about that you maybe have an interesting story about, or comment or anything like that? Or
interesting. I mean, there's interesting stories on everything. It's just
trying to jar your memory, right?
Yeah, but it's you can't really kiss and tell.
Yeah.
There's hilarious stories. Yeah, there's some hilarious stories. I'll leave the band nameless, but I come downstairs one morning to start work, and there's 2 girls and 2 guys, butt naked, spread eagle on the floor of the kitchen. I didn't ask any questions. I just walked away.
All right, see you in half an hour, I guess.
That was funny.
All right, so Jimbo, right now we've got to go to another break, but I'd like to play a couple of acoustic tracks you've been involved with over the years.
Okay, great.
Okay, let's kick everything off with, let's do Kiss, since we talked about them. So here is Nothing to Lose from Kiss Unplugged, and we'll be back with more from Jimbo Barton.
Too late to take a chance again.
99.1 CJAM-FM, there's Queensryche right there with the Killing Words off of the MTV Unplugged sessions, and before that we had Kiss from their MTV Unplugged, that was Nothing to Lose, and right now we have the mixing engineer of both of those projects, Mr. Jimbo Barton. He's been with us for the first hour and a half of the show or so, and we've been talking about his work with Queensryche, Metallica, Rush, Kiss, Eric Clapton, and so many other bands, and right now it's finally time to talk about the new Queensryche album that he's just wrapped up with the band. So Jimbo, what was it like coming back to work with Queensryche after almost 20 years of being apart?
I have to be perfectly honest, it was just like I'd been away, doing something else for a while, and I'd come back home. It was like seeing your brothers after a long time.
Yeah. Between the new record that you just finished and Promised Land, other than the Breakdown single, have you been contacted to do any work with Queensryche at all during that time?
I did get a couple of calls, but at one point I was going to do a solo project with Jeff Tate, and he'd just remarried and his wife was managing him. And so I flew up to Seattle and we hung out together for a while, started putting material together, and for whatever reason, unbeknownst to me, it went south, and I never heard from Jeff again after that point. And, I don't want to speculate on what it was, but onset of a new wife and her managing him, I obviously did something that upset her. I don't know what, whatever. So I just let it go at that point. But I had a call from Michael Wilton at one point after Chris had left, and his question was, hey, would you be interested in doing it? We can make it happen, blah, blah, blah. And I had said yes, that I would. And, then it came back that it was derailed by GT. So it never happened.
So you guys, when you tracked the album, you guys started out at London Bridge and then worked on to other studios. Can you take us on a little tour of which studios you went to next and which instruments were tracked and recorded there?
Yeah, we did 6 days at London Bridge for drums, just because of the size of that room. Was great. And Scotty, he's Scotty. He didn't need anything more than 6 days, trust me. In fact, the last day was very relaxing. And then we moved to a place called Uber Beats, which was also in Seattle, and we tracked bass over there. Fantastic place. It's kind of like a rehearsal room, but the owners put a little studio in there as well. So I want to say there's like 25 rehearsal rooms in the place.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's huge. But downstairs to the left side of the building, you put a purpose-built control room, studio area, overdub booths and stuff like that. So that's where we did bass and some vocals. We did Pamela's vocals there. And I started off, I was working with Tom Hall, who's got a long history with the band too. Mm-hmm. And so Tom helped me out on that. I did a couple of days with him, and then those guys sort of took over it. They finished the bass out over there at Uber Beats, and Michael and Parker and I went back to, Michael's got a great studio in his house. So we went there and started tracking guitars. And at the same time, we were still working on lyrics and some of the melodies and things like that. So Todd was also in Seattle the entire time up there with us. And once we got all that worked out, everyone took, I think we got like a 2-week break or something. And then around the NAMM show, Todd came out here to LA and we tracked vocals here at our place. Then I mixed, this was the first album I've mixed in the box. And I mixed it right near my house in Silver Lake, at a place called Silver Lake Pro.
And then, so when you do mixing like that, where you move to a different studio, do you bring a whole ton of your gear to mix? You know, no?
No, not at all. After this many years, I just work with whatever's there. I go with the flow. Mm-hmm. If these are the mics they've got, great. They're the mics I'll use. If they're the compressors you got, great. That's what we're going to use.
Now, from what I understand, you guys had something like 17 demos or something like that to work from?
Yeah, there was a lot of material.
Why did only 9 songs make the cut? Or 9 full songs, I should say.
I guess just over the course of time, we just weaned down through them. It's not to say that, you know, the others won't come back. It was, they just maybe weren't suitable for this particular record and what we wanted to do with it.
Okay.
But, you know, Eddie's got a couple of songs that didn't make it on that record that will definitely be on the next one, for instance. Michael had an 8-minute epic that wasn't suitable for this one for where we wanted to go with it, but it'll make it on the next one.
So it was kind of the whole sort of mindset and approach to this record, was it let's go make a fast, punchy kind of record?
Yeah, you know, we wanted to, I think all of us basically give the fans the record they had been missing for the longest time. Mm-hmm. And how do you say this without... Someone was steering the ship that didn't think like that. And so as long as that went on, they've never made a record like this.
Yeah. And
I just figured it was time. And, you know, when I got the call from Michael and Scott and we all met up, we just kind of knew from the get-go. You know, we talked about it, but everyone just smiled. We all smiled. We all wanted to make the exact same record. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. So getting back with them, like I said, was like coming home. It was awesome. There was no get to know you. There was nothing.
Have you heard any of the records they've done since, you know, Here in the Now Frontier or whatever, the last one you did?
That was the last one I listened to. I checked out at that point. I listened to probably 8 to 10 bars of a couple of tracks off the album after Here and the Now, and that was it. I was done at that point.
Fair enough. That seems like a lot of the fans, to be honest.
Then, you know, I have people tell me, you know, have you seen the show lately? And it's like, no, I can't do that.
Yeah.
It's all good.
How do you find, what's it like producing a singer like Jeff Tate versus producing Todd La Torre?
Well, Todd is probably, just because of how old he was, is a little further down the track than when I first started working with Jeff, you know, who at the time was in his 20s. Mm-hmm. So at the time, Jeff was maybe a little more work, but he, you know, we always got to where we needed to go with it. And obviously, as time went on, he got better and better and better. So, you know, by the time we finished with Empire, he was pretty rocking. Mm-hmm. He definitely knew what he was doing.
How does Todd then differ in terms of producing him as a singer?
Todd's got a pretty good feel of where things need to go, and he takes direction wonderfully. You don't really have to get into anything with him. You know, it's like, hey man, can you lose that? It's too much R on the leather or something like that. You know, and he's great. He's just Todd's a team player, is what Todd is, and a talented guy. Mm-hmm.
How involved was Parker in the recording of the album? Did he get to play on a lot of it? Because I know in the past couple albums he's been relegated to the sidelines, and I don't even know if he recorded on those ones.
Parker's on every freaking track on the album.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
So did you have Michael play like one rhythm track and then Parker the other?
And Parker would be the other, or, you know, Parker would be the lines in the background, or, yeah, they're both on every track. Parker was awesome, actually. He's a funny guy, because he doesn't really say too much. He's like the quiet achiever. And it'll be like, so Parker, did you have any ideas for this thing? Yeah, I've got this idea for this melody thing, but I don't know if it's any good. And it's just like, fuck, man, that's great. Oh, really? So yeah, and he's a great writer too.
Well, it's funny because the thing that most people don't realize is I think he's the best, other since, when Chris left, I think he might be their best guitar player they've had in that spot,
I think so too. It's funny you should mention Chris again too, because Chris and I are still in touch frequently.
Is he still looking to, does he want to get back in the music business at all, or look to record anything, or is he sort of done by this point?
Nah, he's in music still. I mean, his daughter Riley is a phenomenally talented songwriter and singer. Really, really talented girl. And Chris gets involved in her recordings and does an amazing job. And he still, is actively writing stuff as well. He doesn't want to go out and play on the road, but, he has a pretty tight-knit group of, friends that he still writes with. What's his name from Soundgarden?
Kim,
yeah.
Kim, I can't think of the last name. Kim Thiel or something.
Exactly. So they're pretty good buds, and he also writes with the singer as well.
Oh, he does stuff with Cornell.
Cornell, yeah. They write stuff together. So he's still got his buddies around that he does things with.
Mm-hmm.
But he's not really interested in jumping back in and being a musician.
Yeah. And I can't blame him, because touring is such a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
Sitting around all day in a foreign city just to do an hour and a half worth of work,
Well, it's funny, his poor wife, Kim, when Chris said he was done, I think she figured that he would just, be around a lot. First thing he does is get a gig flying jets. What the fuck is wrong with you? You've been away on tour all this time, and now you get a job flying jets. Great.
Now, when it came to recording vocals on this record, did Todd essentially do all the vocals, or other than obviously Pamela's parts, or did you have Eddie and Parker sing a lot of backing vocals too?
Eddie and Parker did backing vocals as well, particularly on the songs they had written. But Todd did do the lion's share of backing vocals. I would say Todd probably did 50% of the backing vocals.
What mic did you guys use? Vocal mic? Did you guys use a U87 or?
Yes, it was. It was a U87 into a Neve preamp to an 1176 and into Pro Tools.
Now, A World Without an Open Road feature an orchestra and cello and violin parts and all that kind of thing. What orchestra played on them? Did you have a real live orchestra there?
Yeah, we had. It was done in Santa Monica. It's a friend of Scott's, actually. And as you know, Scott wrote all those arrangements and everything. Mm-hmm. Basically, Scott brought that to me done. All I had to do was listen to it. And then he's got a friend, Andrew, who works with Hans Zimmer and a few other people.
Oh, wow.
Drop. And so that was done down here in LA with a small section that he gets. But, they're his friends. So he was pretty much in charge of the recording of that. I just went over with Scott and we witnessed the event.
Yeah. And then what sort of amps and sort of guitar recording approach did you take on this record?
We sort of went back to what we knew worked. Michael bought a new Marshall every time he did an album. So he has a stack of, 10 heads or something. Oh. And he's got everything from Plexi to, you name it, the super leads, he's got everything. But he always spoiled himself with a new head. So you can get any tone that you want. And the great thing about having all those heads, they're all interchangeable. He can put any head to the same greenbacks. Mm-hmm. So it makes, for instance, if we do a track of rhythm or something and we want a different tone for the double track, all he's got to do is move one plug and we've got a different tone. We don't have to do a thing. It's set up, ready to go. He's got a great little studio. It's really cool. Did
you guys use any amp sims or anything like that, or are you still?
No, it's all the real deal.
It's sort of funny how sort of the whole industry now is moving towards amp sims, eh?
I guess that's cool if you can't get a guitar sound. Mm-hmm. But between us all, we're capable of getting guitar sounds. So, and it's sonically more rewarding. I mean, out of this, I can't get that low sub thing that you want to get. Out of simulators. And when you do get it, you can hear it. I mean, I'm not saying we don't use them. Sometimes my partner, JJ, who's a great guitarist here, 11 o'clock at night, we're doing a trailer or a demo for a song or something. We're going to fire up a Marshall at 11 o'clock at night. No. Yeah, we'll jack into it. But we'll usually either reamp that sound through a real amp or just redo the part, the next day.
Mm-hmm. When it comes to doing distorted guitars, what approach do you use? Do you go for an on-off axis or a single mic or something, like Zeppelin used to do, the close-up and then far away? Or
kind of depends what we're looking for, but it's usually just a 57 on a slight angle on the best sounding speaker in the box.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's really simple. And then into a Neve and straight to Pro Tools.
Have you heard the final mastered version of the Queensryche album?
I did.
What? I've listened to it. And I find it to be fairly compressed. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm not sure really. It depends where I hear it. I heard the vinyl at Michael's place because when we were doing the stuff up in Seattle. I actually stayed at Michael's place on the day of I hadn't heard it until that day, and then Michael, said, "Hey, come out and listen to vinyl in the studio." And so we did that, and then it sounded I thought pretty cool on the vinyl. And then he took off to go to the venue, and Carrie Lynn, his beautiful wife, took me later on, and she's got a really nice car, and she's got a surround system from hell that comes stock standard in it. And I heard it in that, and it was so wonderfully enhancing. I didn't hear the compression, but I have to listen to it again. So if people are getting that off it, I'm not sure.
Oh, fair enough.
Because I got to be honest, I use very little bus compression. So unless Tom Baker, who has mastered my records for years, did something that I don't know about, but I don't think so.
Oh, fair enough. Now, Scott mentioned that you do a lot of work with him doing video game scores and film scores and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Are you involved usually just in the final mixing of that, or are you involved in like arranging and recording the orchestras?
No, the three of us are all involved in it. Scotty and my partner JJ are phenomenally talented writers. They'll always usually come up with the framework of something, and then we'll just go start filling it in. Once we think we've got a good idea, we'll just go filling it in.
Oh, okay.
But those guys are the main perpetrators of all our film and TV stuff.
Okay. And then, so obviously you just finished the new Queensryche album. What else do you have coming up in the future?
I'm actually still in production with a band called Mesa out of Texas. There's another band I'm about halfway through mixing called Systemic, and they're on a friend of mine, Chad Jenderson's label. I should be finished with that, I'd like to think, within the next month or so. And that's actually unsigned at this point. They're both unsigned. And so with Chad, I'm working with Chad, I'm hoping to, who knows, maybe they'll even end up on Queensryche's label. Who knows?
So it's what sort of style are both of those records?
It's both of them are rock.
Oh, okay.
Pretty heavy sort of rock. But they do have melody, because they're very melodic, which is something that I'm personally drawn to. I've got to have melody.
So other than those two projects, do you have anything else coming up or that you can announce or anything like that?
I'm in talks on one, but who knows where that's going to go. I'm not the only guy on the pot. So,
oh, fair enough.
We'll see where that goes.
And I forgot to ask, by the way, I totally skipped this question. In terms of Queensryche, so is the plan for you to come back for the next one?
We've definitely already discussed it. We've already started work on the next one.
Oh, okay. Great. So you're back it's essentially guaranteed you'll be back.
Yeah, I'm back in the thick, and we're going to do another one.
Awesome. That's great.
And it'll be better than the one we've just done.
It's going to be better. I'm very excited because I got to say, I loved the last record. I was very, very impressed with it.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun doing it too. It's wild. I guess after so many years, looking out the window and just seeing Scotty do his thing. That was one really enjoyable part of the record, actually, because Scott was initially pretty tame, and he wasn't doing his big fills, and so it was kind of great to be able to walk out in the studio and say, "Dude, you're meant to be fucking back. Can you give me some fills?" And he burst out freaking laughing, and then it just came back naturally. And I remember finishing one take because he gets really excited and he jumps up and goes, "James, this is fucking awesome. I haven't played this much shit in one song for years." So we had a lot of really, really funny moments where we just laughed our asses off. And it just, it just makes for a really naturally good working environment, And I think when you've just spent so many years with someone turning around and looking at you and saying, that sucks, do it again.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I can't imagine what it's like to work in that environment. And I personally couldn't do it. So I think it was a breath of fresh air for everybody.
Yeah.
You know?
Jimbo, we're just about out of time, but I want to thank you very much for taking the time out to do this interview. It's very much appreciated. And, you know, I live for these kind of stories to hear the insights of a lot of my favorite records.
Oh, wow, is it really? Well, Brandon, listen, thanks for taking the time, man. To be honest, I mean, I'm a little bit chuffed that anyone's even interested, so thanks.
Oh, no problem, Jimbo. No, I'm just glad you were able to take time out of your schedule to sit down and do this with us, so I'm greatly appreciative of that.
Yeah, thank you, Brandon. It was a pleasure, man. It was a lot of fun.
All right, Jimbo. Well, thanks so much for taking the time to do this.
All right, thank you, Brandon. It was a pleasure, man.
All right, keep in touch.
Talk to you soon.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, so that was Jimbo Barton right there, mixer, producer extraordinaire. And we're going to go out right now with, as you can probably guess, brand new Queensryche. This is perhaps my favorite song from the new album. This is called In This Light. So crank it up, and I will see you next week. Thanks again, Jimbo.